Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. It is a hot summer in the year 1518. You are standing on the cobblestone streets of Strasbourg, a city that lies along the Rhine River in what is today modern France. The sun burns down, sweat drips from your brow, and the air is thick with the smell of bread baking, smoke from hearth fires, and animals wandering through the marketplace. Strasbourg is bustling. Merchants call out their goods, church bells toll in the distance, and peasants hurry about their daily chores. Life is difficult, full of hunger, disease, and hard labor, but it is life as the people of the 16th century know it. And then, something strange begins to happen. A woman, her name as recorded in history is Frau Trofea, steps into the street. She begins to dance. At first, people smile. Perhaps they think she is celebrating or mocking someone, or simply amusing herself. But as the minutes turn into hours, the smiles fade, because she does not stop. The beginning of a strange madness, day after day, Frau Trofea danced. Her feet moved ceaselessly, her body jerking and twisting. She could not control herself. Neighbors begged her to rest, but she shook her head and continued, as if her body was possessed by some unseen force. For 6 long days, she danced in the streets. No music played, no festival was happening, no joy shone on her face. Instead, it was as if she was trapped inside a prison of rhythm, unable to stop. And then something even stranger happened. Others began to join her. The dancing spreads. Within a week, dozens of people were on the streets of Strasbourg, moving, stomping, and twisting uncontrollably. Men, women, even the young were overtaken by this mysterious urge. Some collapsed in exhaustion, only to rise again and continue dancing. The streets became crowded with writhing, sweating, desperate bodies, moving to no beat but the one inside their own heads. By the end of the month, nearly 400 people were dancing, and many of them would never stop. Dancing to Death witnesses wrote that the dancers kept going until their feet bled. Some collapsed from exhaustion, others fell into seizures, a few suffered heart attacks or strokes. Yes, dear listener, people quite literally danced themselves to death. Imagine walking through the city at night and hearing the constant thud of feet on stone, the groans of people who wanted to stop but could not, the cries of families who tried to hold their loved ones back, only to see them rush again into the streets to continue the dance. What was happening in Strasbourg? The authorities take notice. At first, city leaders thought the answer was simple. Let the people dance it out. Perhaps, they believed, this was some kind of illness that needed to run its course. So they cleared spaces in the city, even hiring musicians to play, thinking music would help the dancers exhaust themselves. They brought in professional dancers to guide the movement, imagining it would cure the plague. But the opposite happened. The music only seemed to fuel the madness. More people joined in. The dancing became more frenzied, and the deaths continued. The city was desperate. Something had to be done. A world of fear. To understand this strange event, we need to step into the mindset of the people of Strasbourg in the early 16th century. Life was harsh. Europe was still recovering from the horrors of the Black Death, the plague that had wiped out millions only a century earlier. Famine was common. Disease lurked everywhere. Superstition ruled daily life. The people were deeply religious, but also deeply fearful. They believed in curses, in divine punishment, in saints who could bring either healing or suffering. In Strasbourg, many believed that the cause of the dancing was not earthly, but supernatural. The curse of Saint Vitus. One of the most common beliefs at the time was that the dancers had been cursed by Saint Vitus, a Christian martyr who, in legend, had the power to inflict madness upon sinners. The people thought the dancers were paying for their sins by being forced into this endless, deadly movement. To cure them, the city officials tried a religious solution. The dancers were gathered and taken to a shrine of Saint Vitus in the nearby town of Saverne. There, priests placed red shoes on their feet, marked with holy crosses, and performed rituals meant to cleanse them of their curse. Some accounts say this helped. Others claim the dancing plague simply burned itself out after weeks of chaos. But no matter how it ended, the question remained: why did it begin at all? A mystery that still haunts us. Even today, more than 500 years later, historians and scientists are still trying to answer this question. Why did hundreds of people in Strasbourg suddenly begin dancing without control, many to their deaths? Was it a disease? A form of mass hysteria? A reaction to hunger and stress? Or something stranger, something beyond the reach of science? The story of the dancing plague has fascinated researchers for centuries. It is one of history's most bizarre and unsettling mysteries. And yet, it is not the only time something like this happened. In fact, similar outbreaks of dancing mania were reported across Europe in the Middle Ages, though none were as large deadly as the one in Strasbourg in 1518. And that, a city in chaos, hundreds of people trapped in an endless dance, and a question that has no easy answer. Could it have been a poisoning from a fungus in bread? Was it a form of mass psychosis triggered by fear and stress? Or was it something more mysterious, something that science still cannot explain? We'll look at the accounts from witnesses, the research of modern historians, and the legacy this strange event has left behind. Because the dancing plague of 1518 is more than just a bizarre story. It is a window into the fears, beliefs, and mysteries of the human mind. But before we continue, if you're fascinated by tales of strange history and unsolved mysteries, you can do well to subscribe to Shadows Untouched. When we left off, the city of Strasbourg was trapped in chaos. Hundreds of men and women were caught in an unstoppable frenzy, moving day and night, their bodies trembling, their feet bleeding, their families helpless. The city had tried everything: musicians, public spaces, even religious rituals. Yet the question remained, why? Why would nearly 400 people dance until they collapsed, and even to their deaths? Theories of the dancing plague. Historians and scientists have puzzled over this for centuries, and while no single explanation has been proven, several theories stand out. Each one gives us a glimpse into just how strange and complicated this mystery truly is. Ergot poisoning. One of the most popular theories is that the dancers were poisoned, specifically by a fungus called ergot. This fungus grows on damp rye bread and contains chemicals similar to LSD, the powerful hallucinogenic drug. If the people of Strasbourg ate bread infected with ergot, they might have suffered convulsions, hallucinations, and muscle spasms. On paper, this theory makes sense, but there's a problem. Ergot poisoning usually causes painful cramps and violent convulsions, not rhythmic dancing for days on end. Victims of ergotism often become bedridden, not endlessly energetic. So while it's possible ergot played a role, it doesn't fully explain the story. Mass hysteria. Another theory looks not at bread, but at the human mind. The people of Strasbourg in 1518 lived under crushing stress. Harvests had failed. Disease spread through the land. Families were hungry. Taxes were high. Fear of divine punishment weighed heavily on their hearts. In such conditions, the human mind can break. Psychologists call this mass psychogenic illness, when a group of people under extreme stress begin to share the same symptoms, not because of a physical disease, but because of psychological pressure. In other words, the dancing plague might have been an outbreak of mass hysteria, triggered by fear, famine, and faith. And the belief in St. Vitus's curse may have added fuel to the fire. If people believed they were doomed to dance, their bodies may have followed their minds. A religious ritual gone wrong. Some historians believe the dancing plague was connected to ancient rituals of ecstatic movement, religious dances that once existed in Europe. In parts of medieval Germany, processions and dances were performed in honor of saints, especially St. Vitus. Some of these rituals involved frenzied movements believed to cure illnesses or protect against curses. It's possible that the dancing plague began as one of these rituals, but spun wildly out of control, turning belief into mania and devotion into death. A social protest. Another possibility is that the dancing was not entirely involuntary. Some researchers suggest it may have been a form of social protest, a desperate act by people who were poor, hungry, and powerless. Dancing in the streets could have been a way of expressing their suffering, a physical cry against the crushing weight of famine and hardship. But if it began as protest, it quickly grew into something no one could control. Something stranger. And then, of course, there are the theories that step outside the boundaries of science. Some believe the dancers truly were cursed by St. Vitus, their movements a punishment from beyond. Others suggest possession by demons, or forces we still cannot explain. For the people of the 16th century, these supernatural explanations felt very real. And even today, when science has advanced so far, the mystery of the dancing plague continues to resist simple answers. Witness accounts. What makes the dancing plague so chilling is that it wasn't just rumor. It was recorded by reliable witnesses of the time, doctors, city officials, and priests. One physician wrote, "In their madness, they kept up their dancing, unaware of the pain in their bodies, as if they had been inflamed by a fire." Another account claimed that some dancers begged for mercy, crying out that they wanted to stop, but could not. These words remind us this was not joy, this was not celebration, this was suffering, pure and relentless. The city's response. By late summer, the authorities of Strasbourg had had enough. Instead of encouraging the dancing, they banned music altogether. Musicians were ordered to stop. Dancing halls were closed. Those who continued to dance were taken to the shrine of St. Vitus, where priests performed rituals of exorcism and healing. Slowly, the dancing mania faded. By autumn, the streets of Strasbourg were quiet again. But the scars remained. Families mourned those who had died. Survivors limped on bleeding feet. And the memory of that strange summer haunted the city for generations. The legacy of the dancing plague. The plague of 1518 was not the only outbreak of dancing mania in Europe. Similar events had occurred in Germany, Belgium, and Switzerland during the Middle Ages. But none were as large, as deadly, or as mysterious as Strasbourg's. And so the 1518 outbreak became legendary, the most famous case of people literally dancing themselves to death. Lessons from the plague. The dancing plague tells us something profound about human beings. It shows us the power of belief, the way fear and faith can shape the body as well as the mind. It shows us how hardship, hunger, and despair can erupt in strange and terrifying ways. And it reminds us that even in an age of science, there are mysteries we cannot fully explain. Why we still talk about it. 500 years later, the dancing plague still captures our imagination. Books, plays, and even songs have been inspired by it. Historians study it, psychologists analyze it, and ordinary people like you and me shake our heads and wonder, what could drive a person to dance until they died? Was it poison, madness, faith, or something beyond our understanding? Perhaps we will never know. And so, dear listener, the story of the dancing plague of 1518 ends as it began, with mystery. On the streets of Strasbourg, hundreds of men and women became prisoners of their own bodies, moving without rest, without reason, until death or exhaustion claimed them. Their story has never been forgotten. It lingers like the echo of footsteps on cobblestones, a reminder that history is not only about wars and kings, but also about the strange, the unexplainable, and the deeply human. If this tale has carried you into the shadows of history, just subscribe to Shadows Untouched. Here, we explore the forgotten mysteries of the past, the ones that make you wonder, shiver, and question what we think we know. Because some stories, no matter how strange, never stop dancing in the human imagination.